I sat down with my friend and astrologer and well-known musician Angel Deradoorian. She's just been featured in the New York Times. We had a wide-ranging discussion about art, music, creativity, excellent case studies on astrology, so check this out. Hey folks, I'm here with Angel Deradoorian, a well-known musician and Vedic astrologer, and also she studied in my school, and she's been doing some great stuff, some great work, and I wanted to invite her on to talk about astrology, music, and crazy enough, the New York Times. Look, Angel was on the New York Times recently, in the New York Times, talking about cosmic energy and Ozzy Osbourne and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, but Angel, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you've been studying and practicing astrology now for a few years, and you have a background in music, well-known musician and whatnot. Tell us your story. People will be fascinated by this.
Yeah, I mean, I really have been a practicing musician my entire life. So I started playing violin when I was 5. I moved to classical piano at 7 years old, and I studied pretty intensively for about 6 years. And then I went to an arts charter high school and studied mostly fine art, like visual arts, and then a little bit of music, and then left high school because I didn't like it. And I went to college at 16 years old, and I studied more fine arts and a little bit of like music theory and like the history of music, like jazz and world music. So
oh, great.
So there just came up. There was like this kind of. I left high school right as my K2 dasha started. So I was in a Mercury dasha from the time I was born up till 15. K2 hit, and I just tested out high school and left. Had no question about it. It was
no K2. No, where's K2 in your chart? Where's K2 in your chart?
Eighth house, Libra.
Libra, yes.
And so just something flipped. I was sick of the educational system in California, the public system, and went to college, and that was really great, but I realized more than that I wanted to travel. So I decided to focus on music instead of going into fine arts. And I just started touring a lot mostly on the West Coast for the first few years because I was so young. I couldn't like go to clubs, or I couldn't like stay in the clubs. I just had to play and leave, wait for everyone else to party.
And your early bands, the bands you were in were well-known bands, right?
Not too much, but I mean,
not at that point, but later on.
Some of them are still going, but most of them in that time we were just like very new, but still like we were on record labels and touring with other bands and going around the United States.
That's what I meant. As someone who's a musician myself, being able to tour, being well known enough, or to even be able to tour and have no money, but say I'm on tour, and just to be able to do it is successful enough, right?
It definitely is when you're a teenager, and it's super exciting and all is very new to you.
Yeah.
Now touring has a different kind of feeling.
Yeah.
I can say that. I've slept on a lot of floors.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I did feel really excited, and it was really cool I realized something yesterday about how I have this second house, 8th house, Rahu K2 aspect happening, and my Rahu's in Ashwini, so it was activated in my K2 dasha.
In the K2 dasha.
And so I realized I was looking for a new family, like how we talked about the evolution of the second house, and I was ready to start developing that at a pretty young age, start to really bond with people and through music and through, new friendships. And that really started to bloom then, but you're like a teenager. So it's kind of
right.
It takes a while to find the people that really you're align your values with.
Hey, give me your chart information again real quick, because we're talking about it quite a bit.
It's July 18th,
Okay.
1986. And it's 0019 in Sacramento, California.
Okay. See, folks, these are spontaneous conversations. I didn't know we were going to, but we're talking about it. No, okay, so I can bring it up while we're talking about it. No, that's fine. Please continue. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had anything in Ashwini, Magha, or Mula when you started talking about it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, just Ashwini. And then I think my K2 is in like Swati, so they're switched.
Yeah, I'll bring it up here in a second. Yeah, so there's the chart. So yeah, you have it's just the Rahu dasha. Yeah, the second house. So in your K2 cycle, you went looking for family, like you said, and values. Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and music is such a powerful way, obviously, to connect with other people and to, not always have conversations through language. So
it's the voice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I started out playing flute and accordion and like guitar and like some of these instruments I don't play as much anymore. But I was so eager to just do this and start having these experiences and traveling that I just did anything I could really to get started. And that brought me on tour to New York a few times before I moved there. So when I moved there when I was 20, I don't know what Bhukti I was in, but I was still in K2, I think, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like November 2006.
November 2006, you would have been in. Oh yeah, you would have been in. You would have been in K2 Jupiter. Yeah, so you're ascendant. Right. So your ascendant ruler Jupiter. Yeah, yeah, and so that's a great case study because again, you have Rahu in the second house, which is literally the voice. It shows singing. It shows even like an unusual voice, an unusual style, a unique style, trying to find your unique voice, trying to find your unique self-expression. And it was activated in Ketu Dasha because it's in Ashwini. Mm-hmm. And even when you were that young, it was like, okay, my voice, screw the public school system. Because that's also, K2 is like, that's it, done. Right?
It was very, very powerful. I can't, after learning astrology and I would look back on these things, I was blown away at the timing. It's unbelievable.
It's remarkable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you went on and then you were in some relatively famous bands, right?
Within
the genre.
Dirty Projectors was definitely the most popular band and the band I was with the longest. I've also played with members of Animal Collective, mostly just Dave, who, which is also another very popular band. And we kind of grew up and matured around the same time in New York. So, one year we were both the top 2 bands on Time magazine.
So wow, Time magazine.
So there was a lot of.
When was that?
I think that was in 2009. So I was really, I was still so young. I started playing in Dirty Projectors when I was 20. I really started that very end of 2006 and played in that band till 2011, August of 2011. So it everything escalated very quickly in that band. I had the intention when I moved out there that I would join a band and I'd go on tour. And I wanted to go on tour all around the world. And I did everything I intended in 5 years. And I was like, wow. Okay.
That's amazing.
And this was, a Jupiter Bhukti. And now I'm in a Jupiter Bhukti again. And I'm seeing these themes come back up again. All this kind of good luck, if you will, around career-oriented.
Well, let's take a look here because we're talking about this. Now, the reason Venus was also so powerful, because you'd be like, well, Venus, it's in the 6th house. Why? Mm-hmm. Well, because, can you see it? What? Venus is the ruler of Mars. The biggest thing, the reason why it was so powerful to give all that success. Because you said it is Venus is the ruler of Mars, and Mars is forming this Raja Yoga in your 10th house. Mars is in Purva Ashada. So Venus Dasha activated Mars, your Raja Yoga planet, the second and ninth lord in the 10th, because it's in Purvashada Nakshatra.
Mm-hmm.
So Venus Dasha started, and this Mars in the 10th, Mars is the real, one of the big success planets for Pisces, because it rules the ninth house of luck. It also rules your second house of speech and whatnot. So, and Venus is in its own nakshatra, at least as far as in Purva Falguni. You don't really say that it rules it, but it's it's very powerful here to give the sort of delight, the sort of delightful quality. When Venus is in Purva Falguni, it's definitely kind of like there's a queen energy to it, especially for a woman. I've seen this. My guru Amma has Venus in Leo. I don't remember if it's Purva Falguni. I think it is, but it's that god of delight, that god of joy. And so, and the sixth house of hard work. So you probably really worked your butt off. Once Venus Dasha started, you were like, oh, I want this. And then you realized, like you say, you fulfilled all those wishes, but it was also through a lot of hard work. You worked your butt off, right?
And I mean, it's the house of enemies.
Well, that too.
It's more like there's a lot of difficult relationships. So it was a lot of hard work with a lot of difficult personalities. And I'm sure mine, I'm not saying mine wasn't one of those, but
that's also part of the, but just to say this, just the last thing, and then we'll go, but that's one of the things that makes it hard work. Mm-hmm. That's one of the sixth house, like when I say hard work, that's usually the hardest part of the work. It's the people we got to deal with. I mean, it's not like physical labor, like cleaning toilets or carrying stones on your back. The hard work of something is usually dealing with all of the drama of whatever it is we're doing. Anyway.
I cleaned a lot of toilets too.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely, I didn't have an issue with that kind of hard work. If you can see the goal, you have to gain all this experience, and it's going to come however it comes, and you just need to have your own kind of level of strength within to kind of weather these difficult situations. And I understand Venus in the sixth house in a way now, where
it'll show up in relationships, but it's also a very powerful Dharma planet for you. It really activated that sense of purpose and really putting you in that place. Because it's ruling Mars, that's the main reason. Because you got those three Dharma planets for Pisces. It's Jupiter, the Moon, and Mars. And in many ways, Mars is really the ones that get the Pisces person moving. Because Pisces, boy, one of the things you always got to get with Pisces is come down to earth and move. Do something with it. Don't just sit back and wait for everything. Because the tendency for Pisces especially is to just wait for everything to kind of show up, and then again, there's a combination. That's a great skill, but sometimes the difficulty, the deficit is not acting. The fish has to swim toward a direction. So this Venus Dasha activated that Mars, which is the Pisces direction.
Yeah. It's a very interesting dasha, and I understand why this is an inimical planet for this sign.
Yeah.
But it definitely doesn't let you rest. This dasha. So if you got a good Mars and you have this kind of willingness to explore all of your insecurities, 8th house insecurities, or your ego problems, or the 3rd house, like those definitely come into play. And I've changed immensely throughout this dasha.
Yeah, and like you say, you're going back to that foundation, which the main thing with the planets are in their dasha cycles are the rulers. And it's the 3rd and 8th lord, like you said, because Venus Dasha mainly is bringing up the 3rd and the 8th house. And 3rd house is also courage and curiosity and energy. And the 8th house, of course, is changes and shifts, because Venus is also activating that Ketu as well. But
oh, yeah.
And so that's fantastic. And then you got into studying astrology. And I'm always glad when I get to speak with students, people that have studied with me, to see how I'm always happy when I hear how on it you are with like the rulerships and all of that, because it's so important.
Yeah, it's definitely that was something I did not understand until starting your courses too. So once I understood house rulerships, a lot more made sense. I really got more interested in Vedic system during my sati, which was brutal, in 2016. So I always liked astrology because I like psychology. I have a lot of watery stuff going on in my chart,
Yeah.
but it never really clicked. And then when I started investigating Vedic astrology, I think before I started courses with you, I read A Thousand Suns by Linda Johnson.
Linda Johnson, yeah.
And that laid things out pretty, like a nice little foundation. But, you know, once I started taking the courses, that put everything into deep perspective. And it was such a challenging period, the sati, which I didn't actually even know I was going through till I was almost done with it, actually.
Yeah.
I saw Ronnie Gale Dreyer in New York, and she was like, "Oh, you're just going through hell." And I was like, "Yeah, I wish I'd known that a couple of years earlier."
I've known Ronnie a long time. She's great.
Yeah. So that really was the turning point, because I really felt this, like, Saturn Moon conjunction of that really heavy mental pressure, and it's all Scorpio, so it just went totally internal, felt very destructive. It felt like I couldn't be that way anymore. So this was definitely one of the ways, maybe one of the biggest lifesavers, maybe beyond actually when I started going to therapy and all that stuff, was learning this system and learning it through your courses. Yeah, like the quote that you found me that I wrote, it brought an objective perspective when I could start laying out the foundation of the principles and understanding how all humans are affected by the same things, and you're not as unique as you think you are.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I kind of, yeah, I mean, I'm very glad to hear that. And I remember when you contacted me, I think we had a reading and we talked about these things, and I could see so clearly in, that you were at this point, because when you contacted me, yeah, that's when Saturn was going through your 10th house and it was going over your Mars. I'm pretty sure it was at least after early 2017, because that's when Saturn went in Sagittarius. So I was here in San Diego at that time. So that's when I'm pretty sure that's when I first heard from you. So it had moved past the moon at that point. The hardest part is really when Saturn is on the moon. That's really when we feel it the most. When it's before or after, we can also tend to feel it quite strongly, especially when we have planets before or after. See, this is one of the things even about the sati that gets really glossed over for some reason, but it shouldn't, is the reason it's with the planets before or after is because those are the things that show the power of the moon. What's called the moon yogas shows planets before, with, and after the moon. So if a person has planets before the moon, or with the moon, or after the moon, or any combination, that's when you really see that 7 years of Saturn, right? So for you, before it actually went over the moon, it went over Ketu. Then when it went over the moon, it actually was a Saturn return, and it was going over your Saturn moon. But then even afterwards, because you have Mars after your moon, which again means something else entirely, it literally shows how you integrate things. The planets after the moon shows how we integrate our emotional experiences and try to integrate our life experiences into the heart. We all have a way of doing it. And if there's planets after the moon, it shows the most like immediate response, which for you is something related to Mars. Like it might be something, for example, destructive, but it can be constructive if there's discipline and all of those virtues of Mars, but it can also be the difficulty of Mars. So when you contacted me, you were in the Saturn going over the Mars after the moon part. So you were looking for a way to integrate all that stuff that just happened. And again, Mars is your 9th lord. It's your 2nd lord. So you were like ready for something that was going to contribute to your values and your value system and your understanding and higher teachings, because Mars is the 9th lord.
Right. And that was all through music. But it felt like everything I'd learned or experienced through music was not synthesizing in that way. There wasn't this, like, that was always a goal, but it only became more and more apparent through these big breakdowns of the ego, through, really becoming inundated in the music industry and seeing all the parts of it that were not very pleasant, and trying to understand how artists can survive and hold on to their beliefs and their sense of who they are and what they're trying to create without sacrificing anything.
I remember, yeah, that it's very hard. You have a lot of courage and a lot of a lot of strength, and I remember you were very much on like a sabbatical, very much like in a kind of Pisces like sort of retreat. I think even living like in the woods or something, and you had really kind of retreated from a lot of that and dealing with disappointment and disillusion and things like that. Again, these are also qualities of Saturn, after the sati, even if there's no planets there, excuse me, Saturn can bring that after it's gone over the moon. But at the time, that is a lot of what happened. And I remember when our first correspondence is, you were like, "Yeah, I have a lot of time alone. I'm just kind of sitting here studying and trying to figure some things out now. So it's great to be able to do this course." I think you got the disc. You bought the course
USB.
On the USB disc, right?
Yes.
You did that first, and then so that was the first. See, I remember when people spend money with me.
Yes, I pre-studied, by the way, and then started the courses.
I remember because sometimes because I remember when people actually do this stuff and they don't just buy it and then I never hear from them. But you bought it, and then I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, then you were like, you contacted me again, and then you were like, yeah, in class 32, or in this class, you said, I mean, you were paying attention, you really went through it, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. Somebody who is really learning it and not just, and that was all on your own. And see, I'm the same way, because I can learn something on my own. I'll take something, just give me all the data and I'll just go into it. But so I could tell I had a real champ there.
Yeah. And one thing that like never made sense to me until I started learning the system too was how Gemini acts in the chart for Pisces, because I've always liked Gemini, but I thought I didn't get along with them in like the Western world. But I've always been very eager to learn things correctly and to not glaze over anything and just go out there and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. So things take a lot of time because you're really trying to get into understanding these things. But as Mercury and Gemini ruling that fourth house, I've found deep like peace in knowledge, and it's continues for me throughout my life to continue to keep learning and keep enlightening yourself and to keep changing yourself. The mutability of Pisces, I guess.
Yeah, and I also remember one of the main issues when the first time we did a consultation was you trying to figure out if you were Pisces or Aries. Mm-hmm. That was that was the big. I think that was the big reason I want to get the reading, because in both cases, Rahu is very close to the ascendant. It's like, I'm not sure because I'm very Rahu, but is it Pisces? Is it Aries? I don't know. And it's very easy. This is one of those examples. I get asked all the time about rectification, but again, I had to get into some questions, but then it became pretty clear because of the Raja Yogas. The main way I was able to figure it out pretty quickly is because of the thing I just talked about earlier when I asked you about certain timing. And as soon as you went into Venus, I was like, okay, this is why. Because Venus now rules this Mars in the 10th. It's a Raja Yoga. Also, the fact of being so creative, this Mercury is now in your 5th house. It's also the 4th and 7th Lord in the 5th house. Again, that's another powerful Raja Yoga here, which definitely shows artist. Now, again, you could make it Rahu in the 1st, Aries, and then Venus is also here too. But mainly the way the Raja Yogas fell into place, and also your nature, and speaking with you, bringing up there was much more of a Pisces kind of energy. And you'll see one way or the other the karmas unfold more. Right.
Yeah. I was really happy when I found out I was a Pisces. I've always felt very severe, and maybe that's actually the Scorpio moon. So it was kind of nice to have one sign. That's kind of nice. Yeah.
So now you're doing a lot of music and you're traveling around a lot, or you had been. And so I'm gonna bring this up again, just because I want to hear. I want to pull it up because I like it. I like this. I love this. That you're in the New York Times. Is that yours? Is that the same
Oh,
one?
this might be my screen.
Oh, that's. Oh, let me. Sorry, let me pull this up. That's your screen. Here it is. Oop, no. Where is it? Do I have it up still? Wait a minute. So where is the? Oh, here it is. This one. There it is. And share it. So yeah. Oops. Deradoorian. Angel Deradoorian. Right here. Is this the one? Oh, wait a minute. We're live here, folks. Let me do it. Application one. This one here. Share. There it is. So now you're like on the other side of like there was like you had some issues a while ago with not being sure whether or not to go with a certain record contract and whatnot. There was some uncertainty, and then we had a conversation, and it's like, just wait till Jupiter goes into that 10th house. There's going to be all kinds of success. And now here you are on the New York Times. How did all this happen?
I don't know. I was pretty surprised. Yeah, everything kind of started slow in this phase. When I went into the Jupiter Bhukti last year, because there were still like all these other planets in Sagittarius, like K2, Saturn, my natal Mars, and then Jupiter hadn't shown up yet. But everything was going very slowly. It was like treacherous kind of feeling where like the contract was going slow. Just everything surrounding making this album took a while. And I guess I understand that with Saturn being there. But once everything came together, once I went into the, this all started before, my Jupiter Bhukti. So when I went into that, I got all the inspiration right away to make the album. Mm-hmm. Made it, and then of course more delays, but it took a year to release it. But I definitely did astrology around the pushed release date. Picked the one I chose because it was the best option out of the three, and the nodes were moving right at that time.
Right.
But I guess because I waited so long and we kind of built it up, there was more opportunities to send these out to publications, is what I'm getting at. And the Times picked it up, which I never expected that. I never really experienced that kind of personal attention, even though I've been doing this for so long. So it was really an honor to be able to talk to them about pretty much this entire process. And it seems like the content of this record is resonating with a lot of people right now as we go through this really difficult time.
I want to get back to that, the article in a minute, because it's really fascinating. But because, see, it's fine, but because you start talking about the astrology, and I want to bring the chart up and say, yeah, because you're like, Venus, Jupiter, Bhukti. So now I got to jump back. So it's good. But yeah, I went back and looked that time when we were speaking. It was right before, or right as Venus, Jupiter just started. And it was, you were coming out of the Venus Rahu, because you had gone for a couple years, actually, since I had known you. You were in Venus Rahu. You were still in that post sati, like, and still trying to sort of figure that out. And that was Venus Rahu. And again, look at how Venus Rahu is what really got you into the astrology, finding the new answers. Again, I say it all the time, Rahu gets us doing that. Rahu gets us thinking in ways we would have never imagined we'd be thinking like this, right? And so you were still in Venus Rahu, and when you contacted me, I went back and looked at the last time. I said, don't worry, once Venus Jupiter starts, Jupiter is going to, you'll start making the music that you want. And you'll be the recognition will come and all like that. It is just when Venus Jupiter had just started, and Jupiter hadn't quite yet gone into Pisces. It hadn't gone into Sagittarius yet. But I said it'll lighten up. You're still in the confusion of Venus Rahu, but it'll get really clear. And you just said, as soon as Venus Jupiter started, as soon as that Jupiter came, I was like, okay, now I get it. Now I'm ready. And
it was crazy.
Crazy. It's crazy. And it's again to the day. And often this is what happens when you do readings and people are still, they're still in Venus. Like, for example, you were still in Venus Rahu. So you're not getting the karmas until you're getting them. And again, this is how astrology helps. You can forecast for the person. It's like, look, I understand right now as I'm saying this might be confusing to you, but it's not going to be in a few months. Because when Jupiter comes, you will then get the karmas of Jupiter, which means the certainty that what you're doing is what you should be doing. And so again, there's nothing like that timing. This is actually timing. It actually plays out like that. But people are catching it at a certain moment in time. So I went back and looked at the correspondence. That was the second one that I sent you this morning. It's like, oh yeah, here it is. And it was from April 2019, because I can't remember either. But
yeah, the day I went into the Rahu Bhukti was insane, and that's what one of the songs on the album is about. And I went through a very crazy experience, and then it brought me into that whole world of confusion. But it also just let me go with whatever presented itself, and I ended up collaborating with a lot of other musicians, doing residency programs, never having a stable home really in that time. But all of these things just kept showing up and going with them. And then I went to a Vipassana retreat, and the day it ended was the day the Rahu Bhukti ended. And I went into Jupiter, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah.
Crazy.
And again, Rahu, and again, you said you were sleeping all over the place, a lot of different, like you didn't have your own home and a lot of different friends and things. This is all Rahu in the second, trying to find your own values. In many ways, trying to find your own tribe. The second house is literally where we create our own family, because we're born into a family in the second house. By the way, you also played music with your sister, and your family is very much around your at least your musical life. You have a sister that looks almost exactly. You aren't twins, right?
No, she's 2 years older than me.
Yeah, but I mean, I swear I've seen you. I see videos of you, and I swear it's like, that's Angel. And it's like, no, wait, it's that one. I can't tell you. You look like identical twins, but so
my
anyway.
mom is an identical twin, which is a real identical twin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's crazy having a person in the world where you're like, you look exactly like my mother, and you're not my mom. But yeah, my sister and I, we look pretty different if you're like around us in real life, but definitely people.
I guess on video because of profiles, and it's just little snippets. It's kind of like the one of you playing in the studio where the mallet and you do the spontaneous music. By the way, folks, I'm going to have links below to all of Angel's, to some videos, and of course her latest album, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, because she writes about Jupiter and the sun and all that. She's really integrated and brought Vedic astrology into her music. I mean, it's not just some little passing, interest. She does Vedic astrology readings. She writes music about this stuff. And I remember this is what you were really sort of grappling with as well, is how do I bring all of this stuff into my art? I want to bring this out into the world and whatnot. So you're doing it. How do you do it? Well, you wind up being Pisces with Mars in the 10th house, and Saturn moon in the 9th, where you're just like, I don't know, I'm going to do it though.
Yeah.
I can't not do it. I have to express myself. That Rahu in the second says, I don't care if nobody's done it. I'm going to do it, because that's who I am. And so anyway, I just wanted to clean that up a little bit about the Rahu in the second. One of the big things, again, even, everything from different kind of music, and then at the very end of it, it's Vipassana meditation. Like you had gone the whole kind of gamut, and then the next day, Venus, Jupiter, boom.
Yeah.
And I always say real quick that Jupiter comes after Rahu in many ways, especially because we get the lesson of all the Rahu confusion. Jupiter is the guru. And so this is why Jupiter comes after Rahu, because Rahu is the confusion that leads us to trying to figure something out. And then Jupiter comes after. Hopefully, if we've become more mystical in the Rahu, then Jupiter gives us the real lesson. We're like, that's what all that was about. And often when we're in the Rahu,
see it. You can't see it till you're out of it.
Right?
not at all.
So now your album release, and then of course we had all this COVID stuff happen. I remember as soon as you were releasing it, all this stuff hit. So it's been back and forth, and but you're now getting all this great publicity and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you said that you sent the album out to these different publications, and the New York Times picked it up and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have a good publicist at the record label. Really good record label too, and it's pretty rare to find one that I think artists really vibe with. And so we all had a really easy time getting on the same page and communicating, and they did an awesome job, promoting the record to different publications. So
I remember when we were also talking about, there were a couple different choices, and the astrology really helped you figure that out.
Yeah, I think it might have been like, I don't remember now.
Yeah,
so much has happened.
Right.
But I'm very happy that everything worked out, and it's really amazing seeing kind of like the fruits of one's labors start to actually show. It's everything is still new, even though this has been going on. I've been doing this for so long. So
it says, I've always been a big questioner of life. Angel Deradoorian said, what I'm interested in is becoming self-aware. And then it launches right in here. Angel Deradoorian needed my birth information. Speaking over FaceTime from her plant-filled home in Mount Washington neighborhood, the amiable 34-year-old musician was giving me an abbreviated version of the Vedic astrology reading she has offered since studying this form of astronomical inquiry in 2018. It's just so great. You got a pretty good looking chart, not too much hell being raised. You said. What a bedside manner. Yeah, she said dryly, parsing the celestial facts on her computer screen, indicating that since 2016 I've been undergoing a period of deep transformation. You can make a lot of change when you let go for a while. No, as soon as I saw this, I think I emailed you immediately like, I want to have you on to talk about this because because I'm just so happy to see that you're there in the New York Times talking about this.
Yeah, people have become pretty interested in it just through, I do some humble offerings on my Instagram page. I don't promote myself too much, but people show up. They want to learn about it. When I break down the principles of these teachings, they're undeniable. Like, no one can disagree. And that's what brings people into feeling a little more empowered, or to be able to understand what's happening around them and not to take it all so personally on themselves. Now they have some tools in their hands. And it's been very important to do these readings with people for me, because ultimately we want to be able to share and help each other grow in life. And this was one way I could do that outside of music, because that's not always something, directly personal.
Yeah.
And yeah, people like it.
And so what's all this cosmic energy and Ozzy Osbourne? What?
This is also happening. This happened in the Rahu Bhukti. I started a Black Sabbath cover band with just a bunch of my friends, and we just played for fun. It was just like pure joy, and it caught on. And this is like an amazing lineup of musicians in my Black Sabbath cover band. There's members of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Interpol, some well-known metal bands from New York, and we just started doing this and selling out these shows in New York, and people really wanted to feel the recreation of Black Sabbath. And I released my record on the 50th anniversary of Paranoid's release. So then I ended up doing an interview on NPR. It was like me and Henry Rollins from Black Flag talking about Paranoid. I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, I'm in a cover band.
Wow. You and Henry Rollins, that's good.
Yeah, it's so funny, because when you just start putting your energy towards joyful things like that, it immediately, it comes back so quickly. And I really love doing this project, and people really are interested in that too. Like, it's all kind of lined up at the same time.
But it's such a I mean, think about like it started in Venus Rahu, like Vipassana and Black Sabbath cover. It's like, you couldn't make it up. And it's again, this is Rahu in the second house from the most side. I mean, literally, like Vipassana is like you sit in like just your breath and barely any food. It's like the most sensory deprived and austere situation, and quiet and still, to like Black Sabbath cover band, which is like
Yeah.
like this retro, seemingly like indulgent, like hedonistic, or any kind of, you could put a bunch of negative adjectives on it, but unless you've played Fairies Wear Boots and Electric Funeral to a screaming crowd, you just don't know what joy is.
Those are my favorites. Those are my favorite songs. They're so good.
Really?
Yeah, I love them. They specifically thought of those two. I've had Electric Funeral stuck in my head all day, and it's so funny you mentioned those too. But
it's I don't know, I'm on some telepathic thing here, but yeah, I always Fairies Wear Boots. What I was thinking of earlier, for some reason, those two came out of my head like right now. But I was thinking of Hand of Doom, which was always one of my favorites.
Me too. I was also thinking about those are the three, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. I had my bass. I actually pulled my bass out earlier, and I was like playing, "What you gonna do?" Boom, boom, boom. When I was in high school, and I would come home from school and smoke so much weed I would almost pass out. It was paranoid.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it was paranoid. I mean, paranoid. I would put the needle on the record of about 5 records, couple Rush albums. Paranoid was another, because it was easy and fun to play, and also so much power.
So much.
Like raw, so much like raw rock. Emotion there, and there's something to that power of just that joy in it, or something. I don't really know what it is, but if it gets you, it gets you.
Yeah, it was life changing to be in a. It has been life changing to be in a Black Sabbath cover band. Just feeling music come through you or out of you like that, and it is so simple, but it's also very, very complex. And it's just vibrationally a very physical music too, which is kind of the antithesis to a lot of my music. Although I'm trying to bring it there, but it showed me a completely different way of how expression works through sound. It's really awesome.
Yeah, and especially because your creative work is not that way at all. It's very etheric. I'd love you to explain some of that, and especially how astrology really inspired a lot of your, a lot of the songs on your album. Not just astrology, but this whole way of thinking has really helped and informed your creativity. That's one of the reasons why I really wanted to have you on, because you have such a unique voice in that regard. I'd love you to discuss some of that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been very interesting, just to say this firstly, is how when you decide you want to do music, you don't necessarily know all of your blocks, shall I say. So there's a lot of things I was very unconscious about. So there's how I made music, and the way it came out was really reflecting what I was not ready to share yet, or didn't know enough about yet. And so there was some timidity there. I've always been more Sabbath minded, honestly, but I didn't feel that kind of strength yet to put that out with my own music. It wasn't resonating. My energy wasn't resonating that way.
More how minded? What did you say?
Sabbath.
Sabbath. More like, Sabbath minded.
Yeah,
okay.
Like anti-establishment, anti-war, very, very opinionated, very aggressive in some ways.
Okay.
But it didn't really come out that way in the music for a long time. I think it might reveal itself over time to be a little more confident like that. But so I mean, I've changed so much throughout my musical career. I guess going from being a little more timid, playing more folk music, exploring different genres of music for a very long time and starting to kind of come into it finally now, really, in the last 5 years of my career, a little bit closer to what I want to achieve sonically, although that's going to constantly change. I know that about myself. But I really got into free jazz and Indian raga, Middle Eastern music, lots of like microtonal, very amorphous kind of non-structured music that you could fall into and just be inside of.
Ambient.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved like raga because it's these fifth intervals a lot of the time. So you're getting this very resonant, nice, grounded feeling inside your body. And so I make a lot of music with drones in it and putting melodies on top and coming back to those root tones because it's so grounding, and it really helped me actually through my own performances, through my own recordings, to start to create music that sounded like that, and it felt so at home. When you're making Western style like songwriting and chord progressions and all these things, and everything's got to be, putting little spots here and there, and everything's got to be clever, it gets very mental, and I'm already very mental, so I needed to go in that way. So that's really where it's at now. I want to bring a lot of peace through music. I want to include people in my music and in my performances. I want them to feel a sense of connection with themselves, with other people, and to be able to kind of relax into that in when they're listening to music. But it's very challenging too, I would say. My music, at least the lyrics sometimes. There's a lot of lyrics on this record, so.
Well, I read a lot of, I appreciated so much the advance that you sent me, and the songs are gorgeous, and the lyrics, of course, when I read some have a lot of the planetary, astrological, cosmic symbols in them. Did you, like I say, do you have anything to share about how this informed that creativity?
Yeah, definitely. This was kind of my first album where I really started to speak more clearly. A lot of my past lyrics have been kind of shrouded in symbolism, and this record is very symbolic too. And I used Vedic astrology in that way to express these different aspects of ourselves, our human evolution, and I didn't know what I was going to call the album, and Find the Sun made sense. It's very simple title, it's nothing fancy, but it really was simply that. It was like, where is your confidence? And I talk about the koshas in one song and all of the veils you need to lift in order to really get back to your inner true self, which is very hard in modern society.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And a lot of it's about how you've spoken about moksha, and how it's also an illusion that people have this desire to be liberated from something. It's very difficult to actually go on that path and want those things and arrive at them. And then, it's like Ram Dass saying, becoming nothing. You don't, like, becoming nothing or trying to reprogram, trying to let go of all your attachments, trying to do all these things is incredibly painful.
Right.
I think, and how you've explained it is like, people want to escape their pain. They want to be liberated from the things that hurt them. But you can't go outside of that. You need to go through that. And you're never going to get away from it as long as you're in a body. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And there's like Saturnine Night that is about that was the Rahu Bhukti song. That a crazy psychedelic experience that left me like totally dissolved, and it felt very, very slow. The whole night was an actual night, and I thought I was just in this reality for a very long time. Very slow, feelings, and every song has pretty much every single song in
Yeah,
some way has something in it.
yeah. I read the lyrics because I'm a big lyric guy. I mean, I'm a singer songwriter from a long time as well. I'm not in the same level, obviously, but it doesn't mean I didn't do it. It doesn't mean I didn't do it in anonymity and with all my Gemini. I would pore over lyrics. It'd take me forever,
Yeah.
not forever, but lyrics are the thing. So it's one of the reasons, frankly, that I don't. That's really what makes or breaks an artist for me is really the lyrics, because music I know you can write pretty easily. Some people have a gift for putting together chords or whatever, and I like that as well. But the lyrics really show that there's something else going on. And I was just struck by when I read the lyrics that you sent me. I was like, every song is about this way of life. I know because I used to write songs like that, not like that, but within that whole construct as well. I think once that gets into your head, you never stop. You never get too far away from it. Even if you try to write a love song, it's going to come back to. But it's all an illusion anyway. So what the hell are we doing? If that's in your head ever, it's kind of like you can never get too far away from it. Actually, isn't it?
Absolutely. I remember you said you have a song called, like, you played at a bar, a song about death and like, we're all gonna die.
You're gonna die. Oh, the song was called "You're Gonna Die." It's like, and I would like it was literally like a happy like a cheer. It's like, you're gonna die, die, die. Like, and the whole song was about celebrate. Like, here we are in this moment of utter forgetfulness of the truth that you're gonna die. And I would introduce it like I hate to say this, I really hate to break this news to everybody, because I know we're all having a good time, but every one of you are gonna die. And I just stand there. I would just stand there, and people were like, "What in the hell are you doing?" And I would go, "No, seriously." And I would like stop, go, "No, seriously. You're going to die." In this night, I mean, now you see why I do astrology for a living, right? It didn't go very well.
That's been my whole, though, that has been the entire motivator behind me doing anything in life. Is like, you've only got so much time. You better do what you came here to do. Don't waste your time. And yeah, I mean,
but it's like fantastic that you're doing this. I mean, find the sun, and just that you have such a platform, and that you're sharing such real stuff with people, not just, especially in this world where everything is so artificial. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, like you said, once you learn this stuff, it really can't move far from you, because when you really are trying to remove all those things that you are questioning whether you believe in or not, there are these basic universal principles, these things that they're unshakable. And that's this, for me, this is what it is. And so, and it's totally changed my perspective of life. It's changed my perspective of myself and relationships. And it's really helped me to become a much more positive person, because Scorpio moon, Saturn there, it wasn't always so positive.
Yeah,
but it really helped me to get to this point, and to be able to be real, and to be able to back these teachings, and to back what I experienced, and like I can explain it all, so
that's fabulous.
Taking responsibility for your art is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of like you said in this interview, which is fantastic, talks about wanting to go into the studio with other musicians and improvise. You said there's an element of error or sloppiness, but it was reflective of this desire to not control things too much and let the environment be intertwined with recording. Such a willingness to just be free and be real, and have that spontaneity be part of it as well.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to just let things shape the way they do, and really not holding too much attachment over anything, because all the things that come out of it, you're much more present for. You can get all these other teachings all of a sudden, instead of this control mindset where everything's got to sound perfect. It's really about creating environments, for me, where everybody wants the same thing, or everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to stay open and inspired.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny because especially when you go back into the, I don't know, old days, I guess they're old, but back in like, the times when there was the Black Sabbaths and the Zeppelins and whatnot, of course they, eventually, recording techniques and whatnot became so polished, and they would go and pour over recordings till they were perfect to some extent. But there was a lot of just sloppiness back then. They would like,
Mm-hmm.
they would kind of roll with it a little bit. I don't know what the time schedule was, but I would bet Paranoid wasn't record. I bet it wasn't even a week they were in the
5
studio
days.
recording. Yeah, I was going to say, they went in, they just let it rip. I mean, you listen. Like, I listened to many of those first albums, especially back in the early 70s. Like, I know Rush, their first album, they recorded it in like 5 nights after they played all-night gigs at a nightclub. They would go to the studio because it was free time, and they laid all the bed tracks. They didn't even have any lyrics. Geddy Lee wrote the lyrics to the whole Rush first album in like 2 days just off the top of his head because they didn't have any lyrics. That's their whole first album.
That's how I wrote these lyrics. Just super fast, right before I went recording.
Really?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah,
of them.
I'm kind of like that too. I'll lay down music and then, but so much of it was just like let it rip. And there's something that happens. There's magic in that. And literally because you're opening up, it's the same way with teaching. And I tell students as well, and probably because you've done some teaching, but even just doing readings is a form of teaching and counseling. It's the Jupiter energy. It's the guru. And the way these planets work as karakas is that the planet as a karaka means that when you're doing this thing, it's that wisdom, it's that channel that's open. So when we're teaching, we're opening the guru channel, the Jupiter channel. But if you never teach, then you never really open your guru channel. Maybe you follow gurus, but until you teach, you don't open your channel to guru. That's how it works as a karaka. Like, if you never get in a relationship, then you never open the channel to Venus. Maybe you're following or you're doing this, but if you never really love or you never really throw yourself into the joy of life, then that Venus channel isn't open. Maybe you're watching it from the outside, for example.
Right.
But so when you open up and you get an urgent situation like, okay, I've paid for this, I got to go in and now I got to do it. There's something about it that forces you to get something to happen, And it's called setting a condition, right? Make yourself have to show up to do it.
Yeah, and I think this is the most powerful thing about being present. And I learned that also through meditation, but when you're there, you can easily channel it quickly. You can get this information fast, and it's just true. It's like, and you don't have to spend all this time mulling things over. You just go, okay, let it come, and it shows up, and it is what it is, and this is why I like jazz so much too. I mean, it's not a very lyrical music, but it's still people that are being completely present.
Yeah, it's in the moment, spontaneity. And the thing about being open, like through meditation and whatnot, is the things that come, you totally trust. And it's called intuition. And see, this is why when I talk about meditation, this is what it is you're connecting to your intuition. And when you're not in a meditative state, when you're in your data-driven mind, you're disconnected from your intuition. And your intuition is literally that thing that is, in Ayurveda, it says that your intuition is never wrong. It's it's that quiet voice that's always connected to truth. But it's a very quiet voice. And the senses and our mental agitation is very loud. So we're disconnected from it. We never get quiet enough to feel it and hear it. And when we do, we always trust it. Yeah. Many people, what they call intuition is just emotions. Oh, my intuition tells me blah, blah, and it's wrong half the time, and it's just our emotions. It's just our emotional bias. But intuition is something very different. As someone who has gone through meditation and gone into these states, there's a big difference between those messages and the messages that come when you're just triggered on some kind of jag that you're getting off on, and calling that intuition.
Yeah. One of the things I really learned from doing Vipassana meditation is that you're regulating your nervous systems. You're cravings and what you avoid. And I really related that to tamas and rajas energy, and how you've talked about these needing to be in balance in order to achieve sattva. And that's what when you're going into homeostasis, you get to do that. You get to reach the sattvic mind. You get to reach your higher intuition.
Yeah.
And when you reach those states, sometimes it's just so overwhelming. I didn't know what to do. I was like,
there's nothing to do.
Okay.
It's just
wait.
It's you're in your state of being, not your state of doing. It's like you say, we don't know what to do because we realize there is nothing to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we're not a human doing. We are a human being, and we're just there's just pure existence with no past or future, no goal, no restlessness about the past or regret. I mean, restlessness about the future or regret about the past. It's just that deep, eternal present that is just pure existence and being.
Yeah, it's going into those states at the beginning. I was like, I've never experienced this. I'm scared to leave this feeling. And then you start to see yourself pull out of it.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just saying that, yeah, your mind will want to start pulling you out again.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're scared to exist in it.
Yes.
That's actually, the scary part is, I'm infinite. So who am I? Where am I? Mm-hmm. And we try to come back because the ego hates all that freedom. And we're really all ego. All of our identity is ego. When we say I this, I that, that's literally ego. That's our sense of separateness that our conditioned mind is used to. We're used to all of that. We're not, and that mind has no preparation for that other state. It just has no place to operate. There is no paradigm for it. It just doesn't. It has no place there. So when we start, those techniques work. And if you do them, you will reach that state. And then the ego, or that sense of who I am, starts going, well, now where am I? Who am I? And you realize all of that is cultivated. It's all just learned. And hopefully leading to that other thing, that place of liberation. And that's what I was talking about when you mentioned earlier about moksha and liberation. That's actually liberation. And notice what happens as soon as we reach something that's truly liberating. We're like, okay, that's enough liberation. Let me come back. I've been liberated enough.
Yes.
Because we start to lose it all. And we want to lose the things that are painful and keep the things that are good. That's the tricky thing about liberation, is we want to be liberated from our pain and keep the good stuff. And that's fine. But we just have to recognize that on a deeper level, moksha is liberation from all of it.
Yes. And that was terrifying, being in that retreat, because you're like, oh, when you treat everything with equanimity, without your own ego involved, nothing is permanent. It's just going to keep flowing through you. And you want to be able to enjoy the good things in life, of course. But it was kind of grim to come to that reality.
Oh, yeah.
And and Buddhism comes from Hinduism. And so you really feel how those teachings all come together and how they're very real. So it was simultaneously liberating and terrifying.
Absolutely.
To be in that situation.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, this is why I always say, there's a reason people don't meditate, because it's terrifying. It's terrifying, but it's only terrifying to your ego. That's the only thing that's terrified. But that's, again, because we are the ego. I just kind of stop even saying we have an ego. We literally are the ego. Our identity is ego. And that's terrifying. Liberation is terrifying to an ego, because that's all an ego is everything that's not liberated gathers around this ego.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone the other day who was like, I don't even think I can change who I am, which was a little upsetting to hear. And it's like, sure, maybe if you just go meditate for a while, you'll just see how you're really not who you think you are. You totally have the ability to change and become something much more peaceful inside yourself.
And this is why, on some level, great masters at some point, once they really initiate a student, they stop. They don't give the ego this kind of food. They just say, be quiet and sit. That's like
Mm-hmm.
with Vipassana is a perfect example. There's no philosophy. There's no this. Sit. The answers will be revealed. Just sit there. All
Oh
this,
yeah.
all this other stuff is just a bunch of your ego wanting ideas to cling to. Buddhism is very austere, especially the Vipassana, the ascetic part, and says just sit there. Carry the wood. I'm sorry, carry the water, chop the wood, and sit. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's your teaching. I did want to just mention something else too, and it's about the music and about what you mentioned relative to Indian music and raga and all like that too, which I think is really amazing that you said this, and that how you wanted your music and how your music is becoming more, at least in principle, sort of revolving around the concepts that Indian music has with the raga, where you have the drone
Mm-hmm.
note, and then the notes on top, and then the tabla. But there's that drone that you come
Mm-hmm.
back to, that, and Indian music itself, even just the sitar, is meant to evoke just what you said, just what we were describing energetically through a sort of meditative state, because the sitar has the drone. And if you really learn how to
Mm-hmm.
meditate on Indian music, you learn to be anchored on the drone. The drone is that meow, meow. That's the unchanging self. And all of the notes, even the tabla notes are like the rhythm of the universe, and the notes like on the sitars or on the melodic
Tempura
instruments,
also.
tempura, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there are many of them. Are meant to signify the mind and the thoughts and the chaos of the world, the rhythm of the world. But you focus on the drone.
Mm-hmm.
You stay as the drone. You're the drone. You're the that's unaffected by all of that.
Yeah, that's why Alice Coltrane's one of my favorite musicians and artists of all time. She really brought in Indian music to her like incredible jazz background.
Who was that?
Alice Coltrane.
Hmm.
Oh, have you not heard her music? You have.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
No. Oh,
No.
wow. So she followed Sachidananda, or I'm messing this up. She was in an Indian lineage. I'm
That's okay.
forgetting who her guru is, but she really brought that style into her own jazz background. She was John Coltrane's wife.
Yeah, I heard the Coltrane part, and I didn't know that it was that he had a wife, and so there you go.
Yeah, she had an ashram in LA for a very long time. She has Turiya Sachidananda is her other name. So amazing.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, I'll send you some
Yeah.
records. But yeah, I mean that she totally liberated her spiritual self in this life, and just an incredible artist. So I really inspired by her, because I watch, you get to see people's careers transform and see how they incorporated their teachings into their music, and what it is to have a practice, what it is to have an artistic practice, or anything where you're focusing a good portion of your life to it, because that's really the avenue. It doesn't really matter what it is necessarily. If you have that focus, it's going to bring these things out of you, and you can look at them and then put them back in and keep going.
Yeah, and it all revolves around devotion and love, really, because that's what it's all about. Underneath it all, you've always followed your heart. That's really what's underneath it all. And I'll go back to the chart again one more time here, because with your chart, these planets, and it's interesting that you're the fifth house is really the house of love and devotion and following our heart. The fifth and the ninth houses. And even though, you have your moon in the ninth house, it's the fifth house ruler in the ninth house, but still the moon in the ninth house means you're going to follow your heart into the deep, passionate things, even though it's Scorpio and Saturn is there. That's just also there. That just shows the other conditions. But still, the moon in the ninth house in Scorpio shows enormous devotion, enormous, taking things seriously, and all of that, and the need to navigate that sort of dark underbelly. But you also have this Sun Mercury, especially in the fifth house. This is what makes for such a creative person, because the fifth house is really literally like children or our heart's desire or the thing that we love the most. And so really one of the things here in your chart so much is that following your heart's desire, following your bliss, following your joy, following what you love, and trying to reject what you hate, like rejecting that school and doing and sometimes it's a very clear choice. You know, we don't have infinite amount of time. We don't love everything the same. And that creates a lot of duality and a lot of, you know, it can certainly show where certainly a challenge can be more equanimity of mind at times, less this is good, this is bad, less of that, because the heart is very selective. Mm-hmm. And I know, like with myself, I have the moon in the fifth house. When the moon goes into those dharma houses, the fifth or the ninth house especially, it shows a great love of things. And ultimately, those things also turn into something like astrology. And they wind up being the same kind of thing, because ultimately you're following what you love. And if the music can't come along with something else that you love, which is your spiritual development, your spiritual growth, that's actually the highest love that we get, is the love of divine knowledge and the love of life itself. This is why I think you had that crisis years ago about wondering how to bring all of this into music, because if music isn't going to support that higher devotion to truth and love, then what? And it's a great crisis that artists have. I had it when I thought I was going to be a musician. It's like, well, what am I going to do now? I don't know. And I didn't have anything until all these teachings showed up. I started practicing them when I was really young, but you couldn't make a living at it. Yeah. But then when I realized, there's a way where I can try this. Okay, I'm going to throw myself into this because I loved it. So all of it is that love and that devotion, like you said, like the Swami Coltrane, and it was all of this, just this devotion. And if it also resonates on the vibration of music, then it all kind of mixes together.
Oh yeah, music, it's trippy for sure.
Well, you're a great embodiment of that, Angel. It's been fantastic to talk to you. Such a great story, and I'm so happy for your success, cheering it on. And I'm going to have links to your music and all stuff down here as well. And it's just been, you're certainly welcome. Thank you for coming on. It's been great to see you,
figure it out a little bit.
Yeah, well, to me, I've just always, seen all of that potential, not just potential, but even success, and knowing that you were going to come around, but seeing you now, not just being celebrated like in the New York Times and getting all this press, but doing it with so much integrity. I mean, I really can't tell you how much I respect and appreciate that, especially as a musician myself and someone who, honestly, one of the biggest things that I lament in this world now, politics and all that, but one of the biggest problems I think that we have as a species is we don't have good art anymore. We don't gather around beauty anymore. The music, so much of it is just especially the popular stuff is prepackaged. It's all just a gimmick. And it didn't used to be like that. And it's a great lament that I have that we don't have this great music anymore. And we used to come around that instead of around politics and all the stuff we gather around now just to fight. So to see someone successful in their music and not only doing it with integrity, but also bringing in Vedic astrology and bringing it into culture like this, I can't tell you how much I respect and appreciate that.
Well, you're a crucial part of that. So I thank you. I needed that clarity, and I asked for it, and you showed up. So
there you go.
Your work is incredible and life-changing, and it's genuine too, and that's why I followed you. I felt your integrity and you holding these truths and not backing down and defending them, but you're not gonna bend. You're what you're teaching, and you're showing that, and then I really respected that, and that's why I wanted you to be my teacher. So
great. Well, again, thank you very much. And people get in touch with Angel, listen to her music, follow her. If you go to YouTube or something, you'll bring up a lot of videos of her performing as well. And also look into her for readings and whatnot. We'll have links down there. So thank you again.
Great. Thank you.